So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, TED. Thanks.
So, what did we see here? There was a lone nut. How many of us have at some point kind of felt like the lone nut in, you know, whatever it is you're doing, trying to start a chapter, trying to get a protest started, get something organized at school. You have been that person who's like, why am I the only person right now doing this crazy thing? I see 1 hand raised. I see Jack. How many else? 4 hand raised, 15, 17, 18. See, we are the lone nut. And I think this is something that's especially relevant right now as we are moving into a time and place where many of us as cis people during Pride, or as allies during Pride, or as white people during the Black Lives Matter movement, or whatever form our allyship is taking, remember that it's not always our job to be the leaders. Sometimes it is our job to be that first follower, or to just go in and amplify the voice that is speaking. So kind of keep that in mind too, is like not only what you're trying to do at your chapter, but kind of what your role is in the larger picture and kind of where we're at right now as a country and as a community. So how did the lone nut get the first follower? One person dancing in a field turned into this huge movement. It all happened because they made it look fun. When you do this kind of thing, like, remember, you're gonna grow your membership. The most important priority is to keep it simple, stupid. Like, we're gonna kiss. So we're gonna remember the Pepe Le Pew here. This is probably a little bit old of a cartoon for some of y'all, but we're gonna remember to kiss, keep it simple, stupid, because if somebody comes into a meeting for the first time and they're like maybe interested in learning a little more about what you're doing, or they are maybe interested in like just kind of seeing what it's like to be a Democrat, but they aren't really sure if they're a Democrat yet, or like kind of where they fit, And they come in and it's this like overwhelming bureaucratic procedure, and they don't feel like they can speak up. They don't feel like they can raise their hand. That person is not likely to come back. That person doesn't feel invested. That person feels like there are barriers to entry. So remember, our overall goal is to build rapport and nurture relationships. So if we are doing this, we're doing this in an inclusive way, and that means not putting up barriers, that means taking them down. And then find what makes people tick. Do things your members are passionate about. It's really easy to get passionate about our own projects and our own things that make us really happy. But remember, if we're trying to expand this and grow it, we have to do things that other people in our groups care about too. For example, I hate honkin' waves. If you know me, you will at some point hear me go off about honkin' waves and how I think they're the stupidest way to spend campaign resources and volunteer energy, and I just hate them so much. But by God, if I've got 15 people in a chapter and what they want to do this Saturday is go do a honkin' wave or do nothing at all, maybe we just let them do the honkin' wave. You know what I mean? Like, so even though I don't want to do it, or I think it may not be the best use of their time, if that's what everybody wants to do, sometimes letting your members and letting the people who are getting involved choose kind of how they want to use that time is the best way that you can lead to. So you can kind of lead from behind. So when you think about how people get involved and why people get involved, there are 4 main categories. So like think about this in terms of why you first got involved, and then think about kind of the people in your chapters, in your community, and why they may have gotten involved too. So social people, these are the people who get involved because they want to make friends, they want to meet like-minded people, they want to otherwise engage in that social environment. So those people you're going to be able to bring in by doing ice cream socials, by hosting a trivia night, doing like, we used to do West Wing and Wings, and we would order a bunch of wings and watch the West Wing. Or we used to do Harvey Milk and Cookies, and we'd watch the Harvey Milk documentary and eat milk and cookies, and it was super cute and it was not expensive. And those social people really enjoyed those kind of events because it was a great way for everybody to get together and just hang out, especially the people who may not always have that social network outside of the organization. There are also people who are service people. These are the people who want to put our values into action. They don't really care much about phone banking or canvassing or doing the social thing. They want to go like clean up the river because, let's be honest, like pollution is insane these days. Or they want to go make sure that we're getting recycling bins put out in the public parks in our community. These service people, these are the people who want to find a way to feel like they're doing something to serve and make things better. So do things that attract those people. Host like a canned food drive, maybe pair off against the teen Republicans in your school and see who can raise the most food to donate to a local food bank, or do a neighborhood cleanup party or like a riverbank cleanup and pair it with other groups like your local Democratic Party to see if they'll help you do that. So those are the people who are going to get engaged and do that kind of stuff. And if you do that and then maybe go have ice cream afterwards, now you found a way to engage your service people and your social people so that everybody's likely to come for the whole event. Now, activism people, y'all are, I think, hands down the activism generation, far more than mine has been or was or probably will ever be. But this is, I think, where y'all are just like banging it out right now is these activism events. Y'all are lobbying, y'all are protesting, y'all are actually doing stuff to spread awareness about the issues that matter. So make sure you're appealing to those people too. I think that's the bulk of what we're seeing a lot of students doing right now. And so make sure that you're hitting that because that's where your peers are. And then there's the party people. Those are the people who are here to elect Democrats. These are the people who can tell you who the congressman, probably man, was from the Illinois 5th District in 1972. Like, these are those people. They're the weirdos. They're the people who can tell you exactly when the election is and exactly how many votes this candidate needs to win. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That is, I'm that person. David and Miriam are these people. That's why we've been friends for this long. But those people too, you need to find a way to engage them and bring them in. So think about not just like who you are and which of these kind of clover petals you fall into, but think about how you can bring in people in those other groups and then partner outside your membership. So if you're doing a voter registration drive, party with your local Democratic Party. If you're doing a riverbank cleanup, I don't know why I'm so bent on cleaning up a river today. But if you're doing a riverbank cleanup, maybe partner with your local Sierra Club and see if they want to get involved. And then that's also a great way for you to bring in people who may not know about your organization. So they may want to get involved as members, or if they are grown-ups, they may want to get involved as donors. So that's always helpful too, because that's a good way to keep things moving, is raising that money. So those are the 4 reasons people usually get involved. And then when you have kind of found that and use that to make your calendar, you've got to find your leaders. So if you're the one making the calendar and determining the events, you're probably the current leader. But there will have to be a next leader, right? Because we're not going to stay in high school for 100 years. We're not going to be summit mentors forever. We're not going to be summit participants forever. We're not going to be doing any of this forever. So we have to hand it off at some point. So find your leaders. First things first, y'all who do this know this, leadership means work. It's not all, shaking babies and kissing hands. It's a lot of actually getting out there and putting boots on the ground and getting the work done. The other thing is just to start small and grow your leaders. So when you have somebody coming in and you can tell they're kind of like wanting to get involved and they don't really know how, give them something small to do. I always call this the bring the cups task. So let's say that you're hosting a picnic after school one day when the world is normal and you can do things like have picnics. And you want to just maybe do voter registration and like cook some hot dogs and like hang out, after school. Somebody's gonna have to bring the hot dogs. Somebody's gonna have to make sure that there's a tent and a table and all that stuff set up. And so you, as the person organizing it, right, you're gonna be assigning these things. Who's in charge of making sure it gets put on Facebook? Who's in charge of bringing the table? Who's in charge of getting permission to set up a, picnic outside of school? And so find that person who you think may want to get involved and get them to bring the cups, because you have to have the cups. They're important. And if they're in charge of bringing the cups, they will come back to your event. And then that also gives them buy-in and makes them feel responsible for part of the event. And if they don't successfully bring the cups, if they flake out, that's okay. We've got extras. It'll be fine. If they do bring the cups, then you can count on them. And now you can tell them to next time bring the ice and the napkins and the cups, because you know that there's somebody who's actually going to, stick to their responsibilities and not flake out. Last thing I remember, let's see, this would have been maybe my first year on the CDA board for the Alabama State Fed board. And I remember just crying to my poor daddy. And bless his Republican heart, he's always been very supportive of everything I've done except for how I vote. But he was trying to help me understand why it was that I had this whole board of 13 people and I could not figure out why I was the only person doing anything. How many of y'all have had this problem? Let's see, raise your hands. I know I'm not the only one. You're like, there are 15 of y'all. Why can't anybody help? I know we've had this problem in HSDA. We have this problem at church. We have this problem everywhere. It is like half the people on this call right now are like, I feel you. Remember the 90-10 rule. This is what he told me, and it stuck with me, and it's been true ever since. It is true in real life, because working is just like one big group project in real life. I swear it really is. So remember the 90-10 rule. 90% of the work will be done by 10% of the people. And if you are in a group of 10, you can do the math on about how many of you will be working and plan accordingly. That's just a reality of it. Ideally, we find a way to keep everybody involved. But those other 90% of the people, for them, it's not that they don't want to help. It's not that they don't want to be involved. It's that sometimes people help in different ways. And if they don't feel like they're being bought in, or they don't feel like they have a chance to take ownership, then, what you feel like is not getting help is maybe them feeling like they don't have an opportunity to step up. But also just that, like, some of the stuff, if you're in charge, you're the one that's ultimately going to be doing it. So spend a little less time being mad about it and a little more time just like bucking up and doing it. And that's some tough love coming hard today. So the last thing you want to do is retain. Keep people coming back. We're going to mix things up. So we want to have a balance of work and play. For every time that I tell you all to tough it up because people suck, we're also going to have some fun, and that's okay. We are going to keep escalating involvement. We're going to keep finding people who work and get them more involved, and find more opportunities for leadership, because sometimes there are people, like I said, who really want to help. It's just that whatever the avenue is might not be their thing. I remember working with somebody one time who like, I was like, I don't know what to tell this person to do. I tell them just like stand at the door and take tickets, and like they can't manage to do that. And like, how is it they're not doing anything right? Coming to find out, they love data. And like while taking tickets was not their strong suit, like being the person in the back with the spreadsheet who could tell us exactly what the ROI on each ticket was for this event and how we can optimize that ROI to make more money next time, that was their jam. So sometimes give people the opportunity to just like do their own thing and create the plan and implement it and run with it. And like I said about those honking waves, you don't always have to agree with it. As long as it's doing no harm, it's probably fine. Let them go. Last thing we're gonna do, we are going to retire. You are not gonna be in high school forever. That is our goal. Number one is to graduate high school. So as you are moving through your year, from the minute you get elected, you should start grooming who is going to be leading this when you're done. And I don't say that in that like leadership pipeline problem that has been in HSDA, like I'm very aware of that. I mean it in the like, start building the infrastructure so that when you hand it off, there's that institutional memory. There's notes on how things work. Like we can pretty much do summit, save this year where everything was on fire. But like generally we can do summit like in our sleep now because we've done it so many times. Like we have the notes from 5 years of doing summit and planning summit that we just go through and implement all the stuff. We already know who to call. We already know what, you know, where to get the lunch vouchers to go to the Capitol that day. We know how to do all that because the people that came first did that institutional memory legwork and then handed it off to the next crew. So think through how you do that. What events are you doing? What can you write about what went right and what went wrong at the end of it? Because, you know, I use Summit as an example, but pretty much every event, like larger scale event I've ever done, at the end of it, like you're all sitting around and you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. That was terrible. Next year, we've got to remember, and like you all sit around, right? Like this is something we all do. We all sit around and we say, and next year we're going to do it like this. And next year, oh my goodness, next year, that's not going to happen again. And then next year rolls around and you're like, man, I feel like there were a bunch of things you're supposed to remember to do from last year. What went wrong? What should we have done differently? And then you do the same thing again because you didn't actually like write down those problems. So when you write that down and you hand that off to the next group, you're saving them a big old headache. So sounds great, right? Like wonderful in theory, Beth. Now how do we do this? 3 things you need to take with you to go. And we usually kind of do this. We break off into groups and talk about it. So let's do this. I need 5 of y'all. Milo, can we put 5 people as panelists that are chatty and outgoing and want to think on your feet? You want to raise your hand? If you want to be
Can you raise your hand if you want to be promoted?
We're going to have a little focus group instead of doing this small group style. Okay, I see Morgan, I see Mishu, I see Maggie. What else do we have?
Okay, I think I grabbed 5.
I see Rylan. Are you and Brooke gonna do it too? Oh wait.
Oh, wait, I might have missed someone.
One more.
Okay, that should be 5.
Okay. And Mateo, hey. Okay, so y'all can see them, y'all can hear them, right? Perfect. Okay, so 3 ways to go about this. First things first, we're gonna set SMART objectives. Have y'all seen this in any kind of like, I don't know if they're teaching like organizational structure or management in high school these days, they should be. But goals, these are the big things that guide decision making. Who on our panel here, hot take, has a goal of HSDA?
So here in Alabama, our chapters are really concentrated in the city of Huntsville, and we have a bigger one in Birmingham. And I really want to make sure that we're reaching out in like rural communities across our state. And I think that can ring true for a lot of our more rural states, is that maybe there's a couple chapters in one certain state, one certain city. And I really want to make it a goal of mine to expand out into our rural communities and away from Huntsville and Birmingham.
Okay, so goal is expand all four corners of the state to represent high schoolers. Okay, that's your assigned goal. Hold on to that one. Who's got another one?
I'm from Minnesota, and we're one of the only states in the nation that has a divided state legislature. So our Senate is Republican controlled. And because of that, our House Democrats aren't able to pass as aggressive legislation as we need. So I want to use our high school youth Democrats to flip that.
Okay, goal, elect good Democrats to office. Big, overarching, large things. Okay, so we got two big goals here. Y'all hold on to those for a second. Objectives. So these are quantifiable steps that you can take to meet those goals. So not just to Ryland, we're going to do Ryland's goal first. If we're going to expand to all four corners of the state to represent high schoolers, what's a way that we can do that? What is a quantifiable step that we can take to meet that goal?
Probably. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Probably my opinion, just maybe if you don't have a development director, appointing one, and then reaching out to members that are members of your state chapter, but aren't part of a local chapter per se. And they're just part of a high school that doesn't have a local chapter or community chapter.
Okay, so we're going to reach out to contacts in underrepresented areas. What about on the twos goal? We're going to elect good Democrats. What is an objective? What's something quantifiable we can do to hit that goal?
Well, one thing, you can register voters, make sure that people in the area are registered and doing phone banking.
Okay, we're going to go with the register voters because that's always the right answer. Phone banking would be like objective number 2. Okay, and then strategies and tactics. These are overall plans used to achieve your objectives, and then specific steps. We're going to get to those in a second, so park those in the side. Okay, so when you think about objectives, we have two sort of objectives here in the chat right now. So looking at Ryland's, reach out to contacts in underrepresented areas. We want to make this a better objective. So what we want to do is we want to make this specific. We want to make it like super narrow to like exactly what we're trying to do. We want to make it measurable. Like, does it have a pass fail on it, right? Like, what do we do to decide if we hit this objective or missed it? Is it achievable? Is it something we can actually do with what we have? Like, it would be really great to be like, we're going to have 1.5 million high school Democrats in Alabama by the end of the year. Like, that is technically a smart objective, but like, there are 4.1 million people in Alabama. We're not having 1 million high school Democrats. It just ain't happening, y'all. So like, that's not an achievable goal. Like, let's try again. And then is it reasonably related to the goal? So each of our objectives, when we're thinking through like what we're trying to accomplish, each objective should track back up to a specific goal. If there isn't a reason that we have that objective, then like, what are we doing, right? Like, what's the point here? And then, is it timely? Is there a deadline? What's our benchmark for success? So let's look at Ryland's. Reach out to contacts in underrepresented areas. So Ryland, let's make this smart. How can we make Ryland specific? I'm going to help you on this one, Ryland, because I'm just going to assume these people don't have Alabama geography down pat.
Mm-hmm.
What if we reached out to people in 5 counties that are considered rural and purple?
Yes, and Beth, actually, something that I did recently, and this might be for a more specific thing, was in our state data sheets. When people say that they would be willing to start a chapter, and we're looking at those areas and determining if it would be a good move, and for this specifically, if that's in a rural area. And so in the Bay Area in Mobile, in one of the suburbs, we started a chapter in a place called Fairhope. And so we have got a regional director down there who is, and another thing is a lot of states don't have regional directors. And so this might be a good way to cover the state, is by having your regional directors make that a priority.
Okay, so we're going to do ask regional directors to target rural and purple counties. That's what makes that specific. Okay, how do we make it measurable? I kind of tip my hat on this one a little bit.
Well, something we did that's sort of similar to, Alabama's situation in Kansas. What we did was we sort of set goals per each like semester of the school year for how many people we wanted to recruit in different congressional districts. And so I feel like that could be a measurable, quantifiable metric of success for recruiting people for HSDA.
Okay, so do we want to do like 10 members in rural and purple counties, or start like 5 chapters in rural and purple counties?
We did both. I feel like you could definitely do both. Yeah.
Okay, so for this one, let's do 5 chapters. Somebody has called me like 4 times during this and left a voicemail each time, and I don't have time for that aggression in my life. Okay. So, Rylan, we're going to ask regional directors to target 5 rural and purple counties to start chapters. Now we've got something that's specific and we've got something that's measurable. Rylan, how many people are on the board here in Alabama?
Well, we have 3 elected positions and multiple staff positions, which is the expansion director, the diversity director, and I think there's 2 more. So I think we'll have.
So more than 5.
Yeah, yes, more than 5.
We assigned each person to one. This is an achievable goal, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And we actually, our board members are pretty stretched across the state. We have 1 in Mobile, 1 in Birmingham, 2 in Huntsville, and then some of the other positions haven't been appointed yet because we just had elections a couple weeks ago.
Cool. Okay, so it is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable. Is it related to our goal of, what was our goal? Expanding to all 4 corners of the state? Yeah. And by when? What is our timely? When do we want to get this done?
I mean, I think it really isn't that hard when we're looking at our data and can, contact people through many different ways. I think like Christmas, the beginning of the 2nd semester is a good point to reach. And then we can set another goal there until the end of your term.
Cool. So ask regional directors to target 5 rural and purple counties to start chapters by the end of 2020. What do y'all think? Show of hands in the participant box. Is this a SMART goal? I'm seeing hands. I like it. Okay, let's go to me twos on this one. Let's see, where'd yours go in the chat box? Okay, we're going to register voters. Okay. So how can we make this a specific objective?
We can target specific events where people who may not be registered. For example, here in Alabama, we go to the Magic City Classic, which is downtown Birmingham. And there's.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Oh, okay.
Maggie, chime in on us. What do we got? How can we make this specific? Other than registering voters.
I think, yeah, if you target specific places or like different towns where there's specifically lower voter turnout or not as many people registered, targeting those places.
Y'all are thinking way too deep on this. We want to make a specific objective. We're going to register voters. So how do we make this smart? If this is a big
Let's
broad,
run voter registration drives at certain high schools.
y'all are still getting down in the tactics. What if we register, I just got way ahead of myself. What if we register 100 voters? Is that specific?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just thinking like make this specific and quantifiable. Measure 100, let's see, I went to the measurable one there. Register 100 18, like newly 18-year-old voters. Is it achievable? Can y'all do that?
Yeah.
Is it related to a goal?
To elect Democrats, yeah.
And is it timely? When are we gonna have this done by?
Before the November election.
Yeah, let's say by the deadline to register for the November election.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Which is different probably wherever everybody is. Okay, so if this is our SMART goal, we're gonna register 100 newly 18-year-old turned, that's super wordsmith terribly, but 100 newly turned 18-year-old voters before the November election deadline. It's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's related, and it's timely. So then when we think through, okay, now we're gonna go back to the strategies and tactics, right? So now the overall plan to achieve those goals, we're talking voter registration, we're going to set up a table at Art Walk. We're going to go to the farmer's market. We're going to be at, Magic City Classic if you're in Alabama, like we're going to be all over the place. Those are going to be your strategies and tactics. So once you kind of think through what we're going to do and what we're going to do it by, like we have, yes, place posters, that's a good one. If we're going to have 100 18-year-old voters done before November, let's see, it is, let's just call this July 1st for easy math. We have July, August, September, and half of October to get it done, right? So we have, let's say 3 months. So how could we now then break this SMART goal up to see if we're on track to succeed?
Something like 30-something voters a month.
Yeah, like 33 voters a month is now our benchmark goal. And then 34, whatever, so close. And so now we have all of these ways to know if we're on track or not. And then remember too, when you're thinking about your strategies and tactics, now we're going to look at our SWOT matrix. So this is something they teach you like in PR classes, to look at what you have for your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. So when you're thinking about what you want to do and how you want to do it, the top half of this, your strengths and weaknesses, those are your internal locus of control. So strengths are things that you have. Like if you have somebody in your chapter whose dad has like a airplane that has like the skywriting banner on it, like that is a strength. Like that goes in your strengths column, use that thing. If you have, maybe your weakness is that like you're on campus with like some not very friendly officials and they aren't super happy about what you're doing, so they like restrict it and make it difficult on you. So maybe your weakness is you can't really do things on campus. That's a weakness. You have to think outside the box. Then your opportunities and threats, those are things that are external to your organization. So your opportunities may be that there's a huge state party convention coming up and they want high school Dems to be part of helping run it. That is an opportunity. That gives you a chance to, sign up new people. How many times y'all have like parents come up being like, oh, my child should so get involved with what y'all are doing. Like that happens all the time, right? Like, so get that contact info. And then threats. Those are things that like maybe are external to you and are causing you problems. It is not uncommon that like the young Dems are probably part of a threat sometimes and we're part of an opportunity sometimes. But think through like what you have and then like kind of chart those things out. So when you're going to like, okay, now we want to have a voter registration drive. Like what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Like what do we have that helps us achieve this? And then what do we have to be aware of so that we can plan for what may go wrong or take advantage of what may be going right? Does that all make sense? Cool. So internal, external, positive, negative. Okay. Last thing we're going to do is build our Snowflake. I'm going to keep you all up here for this part because we usually do this in person and we can't, and it makes me sad. So these are not the kind of snowflakes we want, especially that blonde one because she's terrible. But we're going to build a snowflake like this. So how about Morgan? Why don't you be our center smiley face? You're going to be our chair, right? So this is you. And you need a board. So pick somebody to be your fundraising person that's up here.
Okay, Maggie.
Okay, now pick your comms.
Mateo.
And advocacy.
I don't know how to say your name. Wait. Here, wait. Starts with an M.
Mutu.
Yes.
Is there one more back there? I think I have my chat box covering it. What's the fourth one?
Rylan.
Rylan, awesome. Okay, so now, Rylan, you've got to have some team, right? Because you can't do this alone. So you're going to think of 5 people to be on your team. Okay? Advocacy. Think of 5 people to be on your team. Same for comms, same for fundraising, right? Okay, so Morgan, Madam Chair, what kind of event are we putting on?
We are hosting a voter registration water gun fight.
Love it. Okay, so what do we need to do that? Do we need to raise any money?
Yes, for the water balloons and the water guns.
Okay, so who are you going to tell?
The board.
What about your fundraising person?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's Maggie, right?
Yeah, I think.
So what are you going to tell Maggie?
We need money for water balloons and water. Well, probably not water, but water balloons.
Okay. So Maggie, what are you going to do?
I think we should organize some bake sales because, you know, it's a good way to raise some funds, and maybe make some like laptop stickers to sell and use that to raise money so we can get the water balloons.
Okay, so one of your little orange unnamed dots is going to be your laptop sticker person, right? So who's going to be in charge of your laptop stickers? Give us a name. Throw somebody under the bus.
We give like a name of someone like in the chapter or like.
Sure, yeah, whoever.
Okay. One of the other people, the chapter is Miles.
Okay, and then you got to have a bake sale, somebody, right? Somebody's got to be in charge of the bake sale?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the other people in my club is George, and so I'll have him organize the bake sale.
Okay. I like when men are in charge of the baking. That's a nice twist. And never goes that way. And so you also probably maybe want to reach out to somebody like a local elected to see if they'll just like cut a check and make this really easy.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to be in charge of that relationship?
One of the other board members we have in my chapter is Owen, so he'll reach out to, and he also does like legislative stuff for the state, so probably already has a connection, so that's a strength there.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so who's your comms person, Morgan?
I think it was Mateo.
Okay, so Mateo, what are we going to do to get the word out about this?
We are probably going to communicate to other local chapters in our area, or
Who's in charge?
maybe, do I have to name a person?
Pick somebody. Anybody.
Oh, Chelsea, I guess.
Okay. What else are we going to do?
We are going to reach out to the local newspaper. And I guess Miles is going to do that.
Okay. What about social? Are we going to post on social?
Yes, we have a graphic designer, and they are going to make some graphics to post on social media and ask to post on our large organizations' social media. So Rebecca will do that.
Cool. Okay, who we got on advocacy? Who's on first for advocacy? Mutu, are we going to incorporate advocacy into this?
Yeah.
That's the right answer.
Yes, we are. I'm thinking we could do it potentially issue-based, but since it's a voter registration drive, it could be nonpartisan too. So maybe we can have a Republican issue person and a Democratic issue person, and they'll reach out to specific circles.
And they throw water balloons at each other.
Yeah, y'all could do Team R versus Team D on the water balloon registration. Every time somebody registers to vote, one team gets to throw a water balloon at the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are you going to reach out to? Who's on your team for that?
Let's have Eric on the Republican side, and then Bob on the Democratic side.
Bingo, bango, wango, tango. All right, Rylan, what's up? What do you got going?
Hello. And so for trying to reach out as many people as possible, you know Terry here in Birmingham with the Jones campaign, I think it would be valuable to loop them in on getting more people here since they have a really big platform. And then I would reach out to my friends over at Students for Biden and try to make sure that they can post and spread the word. And then for our state socials, Ella is in charge of our social media accounts, and so we would push that on socials. And
we're
then,
stepping on Mateo's toes now.
oh, I know, membership. Maybe we can work together. So I think that would be our working with campaigns in our county. And then my final person is from AL.com. You know Kyle Whitmer here in the state of Alabama. He is a contact at AOL.com. And yes, high schoolers for Biden. Yes, I'm the chair of the Alabama High Schoolers for Biden. So we would push that out as much as possible.
What if we just like wanted to invite our chapter members to just like come to this thing?
Just send a chapter-wide email. We have a mailing list here in our state that we formed up. So send out a quick email, and then our group chats, our group me.
So we've got now, Morgan, you've got a chapter of 25 people, right, that are on this board?
Yeah.
Does everybody have something to do?
Yes.
Does everybody feel bought in?
Yes.
Is anybody overwhelmed?
Maybe. Probably not, because there are a lot of people.
So if somebody gets overworked or overwhelmed, they can let their person know, right? Like, so let's say that we've got Bob. I remember Bob because that was an easy one on the advocacy team. And Bob's like, man, I've got an AP test the night before. I can't. Like, I'm not able. I'm out of here. Who's Bob going to tell? Mutu, right? And then Mutu's going to be like, I can fix it. And you know who never has to deal with it? Morgan. Unless Mutu can't fix it. Then Mutu's going to come to Morgan and be like, hey, we have a problem. Here are solutions. And then like it creates this like lovely pyramid scheme, not pyramid scheme, of organizing on our campuses where everybody has a role to play. If somebody new comes in, say like in the middle of this, right? Like now I want to join and y'all are in the middle of planning this event. And I am super passionate about clean water. So maybe like something that y'all, like you could pair me up with Mutu and he can be like, okay, great. So like, why don't you incorporate a quick call to action on how we can like finally get clean water in Flint, or like how we can call our legislators and demand that they protect like the EPA right now. So if somebody comes in and they're super passionate about something, you can like hand them to someone and then they can work with that person. In doing so, now they're going to build that relationship. So now I've worked directly with Mutu. Mutu's a cool guy. So we are now, I'm going to come and I'm going to be invested and I'm going to stay involved because Mutu's going to make sure that I feel welcome and feel comfortable. And when I want to have a question about like, okay, I've got this really cool graphic, or I've got this really cool like idea for a handout done, but I don't have any graphic design experience. I don't know what to do. What do we do, Mutu?
We'll send them to Mateo.
Over to Mateo. Mateo, where am I going to go?
You're going to go to my graphic designer on my team.
And now I'm going to build a relationship with that person because like now we've worked together on this project. And now like I know not just Morgan who brought in the chapter, but now I know Mutu and I know Mateo and I know Mateo's graphic designer, and I've had a chance to like get involved and plug in. Am I coming back? Absolutely. Does that make sense? See why it's called a snowflake? Yeah. All right, y'all are done. Y'all did a great job. Thank you all so much. So last thing here, put it all together. Remember that there are different reasons that everybody's going to get involved, and the more that you can appeal to those people and stay involved with what they want to be doing, the better off you're going to be. You're going to customize those SMART objectives, man. If y'all come in here and y'all are just like, I don't know, I guess we're going to like some Democrats, and I guess we'll like have an event sometime and maybe do a candidate forum. I don't really know. Like, I got no love for you. I got no way to help you because like you don't have that calendar. Like sit down, make those things smart. Ask yourself, like, how can we make this smarter? How can we make it smarter until you get to where you've got a goal that then you know, okay, at the end of the year, have we succeeded or have we failed? And you have a way to actually check that off and know what that is. And don't be too hard on yourself. Like set realistic goals. You're not going to hit all of them. And if you hit all of them, do you know what you did wrong? Any of y'all on my panel know what you did wrong? You made it too easy. It was way too, if you hit every goal, like whenever you see somebody who is like, I've worked on 72 campaigns and I've never lost one. You know what that means? It means they've never taken a hard campaign. They've never fought for something. So like, you don't have to hit all your goals. That's okay. Make them hard. Stress yourself. Use your snowflake, use your matrix, evaluate, revise, nail it. Y'all got it? We got 10 minutes for questions. Bam, I can do this thing in 50 minutes on the button now. anybody has questions, you can throw them in that Q&A box, and I will hopefully answer them on my feet.
So one question we've been getting a lot is like, are the slides going to be able to be posted?
For a price, yes, I will get them posted. I will send that out. So how do we incorporate inclusivity and equity into our organizing practices and leadership? That is a great question. First is you shut your mouth and you listen more than you talk. If you were doing that, you're probably in a good place. And that is a tall order coming from somebody who just ran her mouth for 51 minutes. But if you are all the time directing down, it makes it really hard, like we talked about, for people to feel like they have a chance to speak up if they are, specifically if they're not somebody who like looks like the power and control in the room type of a situation. So if you are focusing on pulling people in, you're focusing on giving everybody a way to share their values, share what they think, participate, and do it in a way that's not high pressure, then I think you'll see some of that inclusivity take itself into account there. Because like, while we have to be deliberate about it, I think that when we're building a structure that makes it where everybody feels comfortable stepping up and everybody feels like they can participate and everybody feels like they don't have those barriers to entry, then it makes it where we don't have to necessarily like pull the person in, right? Like they will come in when we open the door and like open it in a meaningful way, not just in like a tokenism kind of way. How do you make sure interest is consistent and sustained when a chapter first starts? That's a great question. So I love the structure of this like cloverleaf thing that we had. Let's see if I can go back. Here. So think about how many events are helpful for you or manageable or achievable for you. And then like try to incorporate one of each of these. So like maybe you do like one large event every quarter and there are 4 quarters in the year and there are 4 of these different categories. Or maybe you do like, you know, 1 a month throughout the school year. Like, so fall semester has like 1 of each of these, spring semester has 1 of each of these. So I think when you are kind of giving people those consistent ways to stay involved and like something else to look forward to, one of the big rules of organizing is you never let people leave without something to do. So if you are giving them a next event to come to, so when somebody comes to an event, they should always know when they next come to an event. And they should always have a call to action. So it should be like, you're going to leave here and you're going to call this member of Congress and tell them this, or you're going to leave here and then you're going to go knock these doors or make these phone calls or whatever it is. But when you have that kind of like next step already planned out, it makes it easier just to like keep that fish on the hook and keep reeling it in. Let's see, how could the information presented apply to a school advocacy club unrelated? So these principles work across the board. Like these work in pretty much any organization that is politically leaning. So if you're thinking about, say it's for, okay, I'll throw my boyfriend under the bus. He did what I do for HSDA for Key Club and Circle K. And they do the same kind of stuff. So they do like happy hours and they do, they're big on activisms. They do like book drives for schools. And then they don't do like elect Democrats kind of stuff. So they might not have that cloverleaf, but they still have like those main 3, right? Where there's like, what are the principles that you're here to do? What is your actual like organizational purpose? So like there's the like what we're actually here to do. And then there's like the service that kind of is tangentially related to what we're doing. And then there's the social side of it. So even like anything outside of that, there's always like the kind of the internal service and then the external service and then plus social. Okay. I live in North Carolina where there aren't many Democrats. How can I reach out to teens who are Democrats? The only chapter in your area. Well, bless your heart, Sasha, because I'll tell you, I've been organizing in Alabama this whole time, so I feel you. I think one of the best ways to do that is just to make sure that you are putting yourself out there and making sure that you're being open and available to people who may not want to speak out as a Democrat. I've had so many people come up to me and be like, I'm just so proud of you for doing what you're doing. And there are people who like don't necessarily want to like categorize themselves that way, but they're still supportive. So like don't write those people off necessarily. And then I think also like reaching out to members of your state legislature or, you know, blue city councils. Y'all got a Democrat as governor in North Carolina. Like there should be some cool stuff there that y'all can work with. Go Roy Cooper. And I think y'all might be about to put one in the Senate, aren't you? That's South Carolina. Maybe, I don't know. But there's some work with Emerge. Reach out to the Emerge ladies and see what they're willing to help do. All kinds of organizations like that, they may be able to help you reach out to other students that are kind of in a similar position. Let's see. As a member, how should we present ourselves as open-minded, even to ideas that we don't necessarily agree with, in order to present a safe, comfortable environment? That is one that I'm really bad at because I'm really bad at things I don't agree with, frankly. I'll be honest with y'all. So I think that one of the things is kind of setting those boundaries about what is healthy disagreement and what is like straight up like racism or sexism or an unacceptable opinion, right? Like there is a good line between like, oh, I don't think this is a strong public policy because of A, B, and C thought out reason that is not based on like stereotypes or bullshit, right? Like there's that. And then there's like stupidity that I'm not even gonna like try to come up with an example of. So I think like setting those boundaries there and saying like, okay, this is a respectful disagreement. This is like not an appropriate way to say that. And then I think too, remember like y'all are in high school and I don't like calling y'all kids, but y'all are kids. Y'all are learning. I'm 30 years old and like, I forgot to button my pants the other day, y'all. Like you will still be a kid when you're 30 years old. And you will still be learning and you will still be growing. And remember that like not everything that comes out as bad necessarily comes from a place of malice. And so sometimes giving your peers an opportunity to learn, and like on the one hand, like it's not for marginalized group staff to educate, but on the other hand, like saying like, hey, that's not an opinion many people hold anymore. Like maybe research that and like get back to us and like give them that chance to like not double down on it, because a lot of people get super offended and like defensive when they feel like they're being attacked for something. Like they just kind of shut down. So maybe just kind of give them a second to be like, oh, that's a perspective most people haven't held since 1965. Maybe go research it and like give them that chance to like step away and like think about it. And for example, I had to have the conversation with my mother about why we don't say all lives matter the other day. So give those people, my mom's 6 years old and like, bless her heart, she's still learning. And she was like moderately receptive to the conversation, and that's more receptive than she's ever been before. So gold star there. Give people a chance, I think, and just, you know, give them a chance to learn from it. What do we do if other leaders are unwilling to have Snowflake leadership? You burn them at the stake and fire them and put in people who will listen. I think if somebody wants to be a leader, then it's not about them, it's about the group, right? Like, and if they're not willing to kind of decentralize some of that, like elections have consequences and they should maybe remember that. But like, you'll also have to remember too, y'all only have so much time on your plate. There's only so much you can do. And I mean, even like on the adult board, like we each have times where we say like I'm usually the one that wants to be in the middle of everything. I want to know exactly what's going on. I want to have like a hand in every pot. Like I'm that person, like super type A. And there have even been times with this where I've had to be like, look, y'all go do it. I don't have time to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with it. I'm exhausted. So kind of like figure out if they're coming from a place of like, it's a control thing, or if it is a, like, they just want to feel like they're not putting other people out things. I think it's a control thing. You can find ways to decentralize that. But if it's like, they don't want to feel like they're making other people have homework, that's something where y'all can kind of step up and take the reins on. What's the best way to persuade people to join your school's club at a generation where there's a lot of apathy and a mindset of it's not my problem? Are you my age? You know, that's a question I'm probably not suited to answer, to be honest, because like I'm not a high school student right now and things are different. Like y'all are generally like much kinder and like more accepting and more passionate about things than my generation was. So I'm probably not someone who can answer that for you, and it has you listed as anonymous, so I can't call you by your name. But maybe that's something that y'all can talk about in your mentor group, because I'm just not equipped to speak from the perspective of a high schooler right now. How do you suggest most effectively encouraging general members to come to statewide events? So one of the things that we've done is here at Alabama for Young Dems is like find a way to make the event more than just the business meeting. So we have like quarterly state committee meetings, and then like incorporating one of these 4 clover leaves in there. That gives people a reason to come and participate, even if like they don't want to necessarily come for the business, because nobody wants to come for the business. And I think, you know, reminding them why they should buy in and kind of building that snowflake at the state level too. That incorporates all your chapter leaders, so then your chapter leaders can then incorporate their membership. Because sometimes our chapters get a little siloed off. So I think giving them those chapters projects to be in charge of or reports to do and come back on, and kind of giving them their own stuff to bring to the table would give them some buy-in on the state level. Okay, one more question. For this specifically political element, how would you recommend to become more informed on current elections so that you could create the best objectives? Very interested in politics and would like to know more specific information on representatives and election voter measures, but I'm not certain where to get started, and it can be slightly daunting. Yeah, it's super daunting. That is not incorrect. I think, so one, like your local county should have a Democratic Party. There should be somebody there who can help you, and you should be able to find those people by calling your state party and asking who is the person in your county to talk to. And they will probably be tickled pink to hear from you, because usually like the adults in the room love high schoolers and they love you while you're like adorable and photogenic. And then when we get older and start trying to take the reins away from them, they start to hate you. So like get in now while they still like you, and you can sneaky get in and get in charge. But talk to them and see what they say, because they're going to be best suited to talk about like those weird municipal elections and then what's happening like for special elections and all that kind of across the board. And I think that's all we have, unless Milo says we have time for one more. We do.
I think we have time for one more.
One more. Okay. How do you convince people to join your chapter when you have not been the most persuasive speaker? That is a great question. So there are 2 types of people that organize, and I learned this when I first started organizing. There are workhorses and there are show horses. And let's be honest, some of us are just workhorses, and most of us here are here because it's like a time you could all be asleep and you're a workhorse. So find a show horse and like find that person who like doesn't necessarily, I mean, okay, so we all know that person who doesn't necessarily really want to do anything, but they really love to hear the sound of their own voice. Like, y'all know who I'm talking about. You all have somebody in mind. It might be a little bit you, low key. I'm kind of that way too. But find that person and let them be the mouthpiece. Let them go around being like your little like press secretary for this, and doing the charismatic kind of persuasion speaking part of it. And then you focus on doing the stuff that you're good at, because, you know, everybody should play to their talents. Anything else? Riley, we have time for any more?
I mean, the next session is a chill breakout. So like if people just prefer to spend their chill breakout with you, I guess that's fine.
I have to go back to work though. Let me see what's happening in my life, and then we can chill breakout.
While Beth is making sure nothing burned down in her absence, next session we are having a chill breakout. The link will be posted in Discord, and we will be having, this is a time to like get to know your fellow people who from all over the country. Really try to engage, try to talk to each other, try to hear from each other, listen, also give your own experiences. Don't just talk about positions, talk about other things as well. Talk about what you want to accomplish, talk about running for office, talk about your favorite TV shows, really get to know each other. That's the most important part of Summit, is getting to know each other. With that, it looks like Beth has to do something. Let me see if I can answer.
It was that person, y'all remember how I was like, this person's called me 4 times and left 4 different voicemails? They were like, I'm outside 104, which is like my office. and I don't know who it was. That's super creepy. Oh shit, it was my DoorDash.
Okay, guys, you're getting a real glimpse into our lives. How to prevent yourself from micromanaging, especially when your peers are not as motivated as you are. Honestly, that's just something that's going to be hard for your entire life based on what Beth said about workhorse and showhorse and how 10% of the people do 90% of the work. That's just going to be a struggle. And ways I've dealt with that is that if you find someone's strength and give someone something to do and try to make it like, not like, did you do that thing? Did you do that thing? Try to make it about like, hey, how's it coming along? Like, do you want anything? Like, could you use some more help? Like, make it much more instead of it being about I'm in charge and did you do what I asked you to do? And how dare you not? Try to work collaboratively with people instead of exercising authority. It's always better. It will always yield better results.
Yeah, I am back now. So also on the prevent yourself from micromanaging, Miriam, this is so not a problem I have, is it at all? So one of the things I've had to learn, and I remember when I was on the college DEMS board being like, I want everybody's report by 8 o'clock, and if it's 8:02 and you haven't sent to me, like, you are fired, I am done. Why can't you people follow directions? And like, I see some of these high school kids acting the same way, y'all, I'm gonna be honest. And so kind of remembered like everybody's got their own things to deal with, but also remember that like it doesn't always have to be exactly the way you would have done it. I'm gonna call my mama out real quick, because my mama, if I would come home from school and load the dishwasher, that woman would come home from work at 5:30 and take every single dish out of the dishwasher and put every single dish back into the dishwasher, because I didn't do it right. And it wasn't that like I did it wrong. It was that like she likes the glasses to go on the right side of the dishwasher, and I dared to put the glasses on the left side of the dishwasher. And so do you know what happened? Like, I quit doing the dishes, because if it was gonna have to get redone, like, no sense in me doing it. She's gonna do it again anyway. And then for the next like 18 years of my life, my mother complained that nobody helped her do the dishes. And eventually we had to have this come to Jesus where I reminded her that she could have it done her way or she could have it done by somebody else, but she can't have it both ways all the time. And so kind of remember that too, that when you're organizing, like, you can have things done your way or you can have it done by somebody else. And if it's just not like egregiously bad, then you gotta just let it go sometimes. And like, it's not all that serious. Sometimes letting people have that buy-in is more important than it being exactly particularly correct. Like, I remember Andrew Ping will be doing the branding training. I'm gonna tell an Andrew Ping story so y'all can give him grief about it. After he wasn't on the board anymore, whoever was next as comms director, and I truly don't remember who it is, had started posting graphics. And Andrew still had Facebook access, so he would like go along and like delete the graphics that they posted if he didn't think they were good enough. And we had to be like, Ping, like, you cannot do this. You have to let it go. You're in college. Go have fun. Quit micromanaging this. So those are my two takeaways. You can have it done your way or you can have it done by somebody else, but you can't have it both ways. Okay, if you're always the person who does the work, should you stop doing some of it until someone else steps up? If you don't do it, no one will. So yeah, and sometimes like we talked about, like, it's the 90-10 rule and you are going to just be the person doing the work sometimes. And I think that the more important takeaway from that is that you give people the opportunity to participate and you give them the opportunity to step up and do it in their own way and do it in a way where they feel comfortable. And if they're not helping, kind of just like open that door. Like, what else would y'all like to do? Like, what other projects would y'all, and like, I know what happens, right? It's like, you've got crickets, but you're like, so what do you want to do? And everybody's like, and then you're like, okay, well, how about this? And they're like, and you're like, great, who wants to bring the cups? And they're like, so, I mean, sometimes like it's a combination of like, you just gotta start telling people to do stuff and be like, great, okay, we need, like I said, like, we need 3 or 5 volunteers for this training. Give me 5 hands. And like, just start putting people into those positions. And sometimes people will surprise you and they'll rise to the occasion. But other times, like, maybe always have like a backup set of cups somewhere just in case.
Honestly, if I may, Beth, a lot of this comes down to like member input. And so when we're doing events here in Alabama, just like putting out a Google form and saying, well, what time would work for you guys? Instead of setting like, okay, 5 p.m. and then you have a couple people show up. But if your Google form says like 4:30 or 4, maybe that's just take some input. People want to feel like they're being heard. And so I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point too. And remember too, like to think through like religious and cultural holidays and kind of how that stuff fits in. Like we pitched a fit one time because like the Birmingham Young Guns did an event on like the last night of Hanukkah. Like that's probably not a time that you should be planning. Like just do it the next night, guys. Come on. Or also think through like, you know, okay, so like in the South, and I don't know about everywhere else, like my experiences are almost exclusively in the South, but like if you are Black and you are religious, your churches go until like 3 o'clock. Like it is just something that's going to happen. So if you plan a Democratic event for like 1 o'clock on a Sunday, you know who's not going to be there? Your base, like the people that matter most to you. So plan accordingly. Like don't do stuff on Sunday because like that's an important time. So kind of just like thinking through too, like who are we trying to bring in and who are we trying to bring to the table, and when are those people also available? Like we lose Miriam every Friday night, so Miriam's not coming out with us on a Friday night.
No. Any other questions? I did see a question that got answered, but how to climb the ranks of HSDA.
Don't do it. It's a trap.
What?
I said, don't do it. It's a trap.
It is a trap. But having done it, honestly, it's only worth it if you're in it for the right reasons. I will say that. And what's most important is like building relationships, and not in a phony way, because that's not how it works. And like trying to like suck up to your state chair so that they'll like pick you for something, like that's not where it's at. It's like the answer is be a workhorse. Like be a workhorse, do the work, make sure everyone knows you do the work, but don't walk around and be like, oh, I did everything. But make sure that it's clear that you did what you needed to do and you genuinely care about the organization and other people. Be there for each other. Make sure that you're checking in on people and making sure that they are in a good place mental health wise. Like it is all about being a good partner in this work, because without that, A, it's not worth it, and B, nothing's getting done. Like you climbing the ranks, there's no ranks. Like there's people who do work and there's work to be done. And if you're not like, if you're in a position and you're not doing the work, or you're neglecting students, your quote unquote constituents, if you want to put it in the terms that I know that as a high schooler, I was like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm like running for office. But like, no, you're not. And you'll learn quickly enough. Like it's about doing the work.
She was so obnoxious when she was younger.
I was the worst. But then I learned that it's not about that. And I'm still good friends with the people who I worked with. And they respect me, not because I had this fancy position of chief of staff or because I was on the board. They respected me because I did the work, and they knew that I did the work because we worked together. If anyone else on the panel has anything, who's a panelist, wants to answer that question.
Yes.
I think one of the things with it too is like one of the big principles of leadership, right, is like take the fall and give the credit. So if something is going wrong and you're the chair or you're the leader of the event or you're the person who like was in charge of it, it does not matter like who forgot to bring the cups. You forgot to bring the cups. And if something goes right, it is all because that person remembered to bring the cups. Like you should be giving all the credit and taking all the fall. And that way, like, it's not going to feel awesome in that moment, but like, that's a good way to get respect as a leader.
Okay, I want to add something super quick. So just a personal piece of advice, don't look at HSDA as like, this is not to like disqualify whoever's question this was or whatever, but I just want to say like, don't think of HSDA as ranks. Just like, I don't know, because we're all here for the same reason. We all want to organize. We all want to, further the ideology of the Democratic Party. But I think part of that is recognizing that, like, HSDA, just like Miriam said, it's not running for actual office. Like, you're here to work. Like, you're here to get the job done. So don't think of it as like a hierarchy. If you want to run for a position, or you want to, like, get to know a lot of people, just, like, genuinely be yourself and, like, put in the work, and you will get there. Because, like, if we continue to think of HSDA as, like, having ranks, that's where the whole hierarchy comes from. That's where the leadership pipeline comes from. And that's exactly what we need to dismantle. So just, if you want a position, go for it, put in the work, and you'll get there. Like, I promise you, it's the most, like, it's the greatest feeling to know that you got a position because you worked to get there. And so, yeah, just, like, forget the whole ranks thing. Like, that doesn't matter. Ranks should not exist. They do not exist. Just go for whatever position you want. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, so we should wrap up so everyone can get to the chill breakout to start making friends. But I want to leave you with one last thing about HSDA. I think what's most important is you don't need a position, you don't need a title, you don't need, literally all you need is to be a high schooler who wants to elect Democrats and do good work to be an important member of HSDA. We've had people in the past who were, like, on the executive board who did nothing. And we've had people in the past who didn't have a title who saved Summit, or who ran entire issue campaigns that really did affect actual policy and helped real people. So it doesn't even matter. You can be super, quote unquote, powerful or important, quote unquote, or impactful, which is what you should want to be, is impactful, without a position, without a title, by just doing the work and being yourself. With that, everyone, any last words, Beth, before we send everyone to chill breakout?
That's it. You are now indoctrinated into the cult of the snowflake. Go forth and organize, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye, guys.
Milo, fix it.
Milo, can you make it stop? Okay, everyone can just leave.